Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our annual caregiver training and membership meeting. Just a few house rules before we start. If you haven't already, which I think everyone here has, just go ahead and please mute your speaker, or I'm sorry, your microphone. If you have any questions during today's presentation, you can either put them in the chat or at the end of Katie's presentation, she'll call for questions and you can unmute yourself and ask during that time. All materials and presentation that Katie has and a recording of today's presentation will be available in a few days afterwards, and I'll be sure to email those items out to each of you that have registered for the meeting. And before Katie begins her presentation, I'm just going to spend a little time introducing you to KABC if you're unfamiliar with our organization. And then our executive director, Dan Goodman, will start our annual meeting, and all of that will take about 10 minutes, and then we'll get right into all of Katie's good stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. So, we are Kansas Advocates for Better Care, and this is our lovely 50th anniversary logo because this year is our 50th anniversary. And to start to talk about KABC, I always like to begin with our history because I think it's really important. So our history begins in 1966 when Petey Cerf of Lawrence had been regularly reading to a nursing home resident. She was a big volunteer, and this nursing home resident was blind and had both feet amputated. And one day the woman was ill and she was calling out, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe," and Petey was there. And a nurse entered a room and told the resident to shut up, you're always yelling. And the next day, Petey read that resident's name in the obituaries. And that tragic experience led to the founding of Kansans for Improvement of Nursing Homes. So, a group of 6 women, Petey included, from the Topeka and Lawrence area, came together to organize conferences, phone and meet with concerned citizens, and bring to light the mistreatment of nursing home residents. They were originally met with hostility from local and state officials who had previously received all of their information about the nursing home industry from the nursing homes themselves. But eventually they piqued the interest of Governor Bennett, who began a series of surprise visits to nursing homes, which is kind of unheard of at the time. And Governor Bennett found some really serious problems in these nursing facilities. So, Kansans for Improvement of Nursing Homes, or KINH, helped pass 2 significant pieces of nursing home legislation in 1978. One of those being a law authorizing civil penalties against nursing home owners for uncorrected violations affecting the safety, nutrition, and sanitation of their residents. And while our organization has evolved over the years, including our name to Kansas Advocates for Better Care in 1996, our mission has really remained the same, and that is to advocate for the fundamental right of all long-term care residents to be treated with dignity, respect, and receive quality long-term care. And I just wanted to point out, because of our 50th anniversary, these are our 6 founders of Kansans for Improvement of Nursing Homes. And I wanted to add a little quote from Bob Dole about our organization that says, "Kansans for Improvement of Nursing Homes is an effective voice in defending the interests of those persons who are often not in a position to speak for themselves. Kansas is fortunate to have a consumer group as KINH, and I would say the same for KABC today." At Kansas Advocates for Better Care, we are dedicated to improving the quality of long-term care for older Kansans at home and in residential care settings. We envision a Kansas where all older adults enjoy excellent quality of life and care no matter where they choose to live. And so, what exactly do we do? I like to divide what we do up into our 3 pillars: our advocacy, our empowerment, and our resources. So we empower older adults and their families to make decisions about long-term care. So through email, phone calls, or personal meetings, we can connect individuals with helpful resources to navigate the ever-changing landscape of long-term care. One specific resource we provide is our consumer information reports of all licensed adult care facilities in Kansas. And these reports can help translate the detailed health and safety reports on specific long-term care facilities for those individuals and families that are ready to take that next step towards facility level care. We also provide an extensive collection of resources online and print, including our most recent, which is our Douglas County Senior Resource Directory. And then later, Dan will talk about how we're expanding that to hopefully expanding that across the state. We keep the community up to date on long-term care legislation and trends. We provide educational training, such as our annual caregiver training. We advocate, and a big part of what we do is we advocate through public policy initiatives, and we're very active legislatively throughout the year and also during the session. Mm-mm. And really quickly, I wanted to highlight one of our events for our 50th anniversary, and this is a free event. On Tuesday, October 28th, we're hosting a screening of No Country for Old People, which is a three-part docu-series about long-term care abuse from a woman and her mother's perspective, and that woman's name is Susie Singer Carter. The doors open at 5:30 and the screening starts at 6, and it's at Liberty Hall here in Lawrence. And there's free refreshments provided, and there'll be a really fun 50th anniversary cookie too. And also we're providing soda, popcorn, a sandwich. So, I mean, you get an awesome documentary and awesome food with good company. And if you're interested in attending, we just ask that you please RSVP to either info@kabc.org or our phone number, which is 785-842-3088. And then lastly, for those of you that aren't connected with us, I just ask that you do stay connected with us. Here's kind of our just general contact information. And I'll be sure to send this information out with you when I send out the recording, and any additional documents from today's presentation. And so I'm going to kick it over to Dan Goodman, who's going to go through our membership meeting real quick.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Dan Goodman. I'm the Executive Director of Kansas Advocates for Better Care. Each year, before our caregiver training begins, our board has its annual meeting and election and re-election of our board officers. This year, I've been asked to lead in this activity. And the nominating committee has proposed the following slate of officers for 2026, and you'll see them on your screen. Molly Wood as president, Barbara Braw as treasurer, and Deborah Merrill as board member. The motion before us is to accept this slate and open the floor for additional nominations. May I hear a second?
Dan,
second.
sorry.
I,
Dan, I'd so move.
I
Camille.
hear a second from Camille Russell. Again, it has been moved and seconded to accept the proposed slate of officers, and now I will open the floor for additional nominations from the floor. Hearing no further nominations are now closed. Without objection, the slate is elected by acclamation. Congratulations to our 2026 officers. Thank you for everyone for taking part in this process. The second purpose in me speaking this morning is to share our 2027 legislative accomplishments. As many of you may have heard, last session was a rough one for consumer advocates in Kansas. However, we are proud to share 3 accomplishments that KABC had in last session. It looks like Libya's put them up there, but number 1, the KABC support and Alzheimer's Association as lead were able to secure dementia training for long-term care ombudsman staff. This item will better prepare staff as they advocate for residents' rights in long-term care facilities. Number 2, KABC opposed efforts to eliminate the state fire marshal inspection in long-term care facilities. As odd as it sounds, there was an effort to eliminate the fire marshal inspections as part of the licensing requirements last session. The industry feels that fire inspections were too costly, disruptive, and inconsistently applied. Our advocacy, along with the advocacy of others, prevented a hearing to be considered in last session. However, we are fairly confident that this effort will resurface in the upcoming session as well. So our plan is to oppose any legislation in this regard in the next session. And then finally, KABC secured legislative funding for a statewide senior resource guide. If you go back at all in Kansas long-term care history, many of you will probably remember the Explore Your Options guide that was printed and distributed across Kansas for years prior to the Brownback administration. Um, in a few areas have continued to do it on a local level, but in large part, that resource guide and tool has been missing from older Kansans and their families for quite some time now. This guide will be a useful tool for older Kansans and their families towards more education and a better decision regarding their long-term care options. The target date for this resource to be available for folks is July 1st, 2026, with hope that additional work and updates will be funded in future years. If you're interested in joining our advocacy towards similar type issues in January, please get in contact with us. We do welcome all partners. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dan. And now we're going to move on to our caregiver training. So I'm going to give a brief introduction of Katie, and then I'll turn it over to Katie. So Katie Tipton is the director of business operations at Ask Sammy Inc., bringing over a decade of hands-on clinical experience to her leadership role. She earned her degree as a certified occupational therapy assistant from Newman University after earning a Bachelor of Science degree from Kansas State University. Before moving into operations, Katie built her career in settings including home health, neurorehabilitation, acute care, and long-term care. At Ask Sammy, she leverages that clinical background to guide business strategy, streamline operations, and ensure that the services and consultations delivered are both clinically sound and accessible. Her specialties include home modifications, aging in place, neurorehabilitation, and helping clients find actionable solutions via adaptive equipment and changes in environment or activity. So please join me in welcoming Katie for her presentation. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Katie.
Okay. Let me get this presentation up first. Okay, everybody. As Libby said, I am Katie Tipton, and I have a background in occupational therapy, and really home health is where my passion was before starting working at Ask Sammy. So fall prevention is the number one thing we focus on in home health. So I'm very excited to talk about that with you guys today. So we're gonna go over how prevalent falls are, understanding things that contribute to falls, and then we'll get into ways that you can easily modify things to prevent falls. So, like I said, our learning objectives will be understanding fall risk, simple home modifications, how caregivers can support their loved one in preventing falls, and then just resources and support for continued safety. So, understanding the fall risk. Falls are extremely prevalent in the older population. Actually, every second of every day, somebody over age 65 falls. That is a lot of people. That is 3 million injuries in the emergency room. And it also contributes to about $50 billion in injuries that is spent by the healthcare system. We can go into the whole healthcare system a different time and how they don't pay for things, but not today. It is the number one leading cause of injury and death for older Americans. The fear of falling is extremely prevalent. When somebody falls, they have especially if they have an injury that affects how they move and their mobility, that fear of falling can be greater than even the damage the injury causes. So we'll talk about that too, and how to make people feel safe. So some of the biggest risk factors for older adults are actually, I know a lot of people think about muscle weakness and balance, but usually what is causing a fall is improper medication management, um, not getting basic needs met. Then it would be muscle weakness, not using their correct device, like assistive device. If they have a walker or a cane or a wheelchair, they're not using them. And then balance issues. So why this is important. I mentioned that it's the number one cause of injury for older adults. So avoiding injury, it can take a long time for people to recover from some of the injuries that they get. Broken hips, broken shoulders, those have long recovery times, even for younger people. So especially when they're older, it can take 6 months to a year sometimes for people to recover from those. Just preventing falls while maintaining independence is huge. A lot of people that are older are falling just trying to get up to go to the bathroom or get a drink or something like that, just trying to get a basic thing that they need. So we want to help them maintain independence and be able to do those things on their own. And if we can prevent some falls, that will automatically reduce the healthcare cost. Like I said, we spend right now about $50 billion a year in fall related injuries in the healthcare system. So if we can prevent falls, we're going to reduce the spending. And if we're helping them feel better, take care of their basic needs, and not having the fear of falling, they're going to automatically improve their quality of life. So that will help with them feeling safer at home. It will help their mood, feeling like I can do this, build confidence, all those things. So there is a couple ways that you actually can assess your own fall risk, or you guys as caregivers can help assess somebody that you love, that you're helping take care of. One is a timed up and go test. And you can do this easily. You would set up a chair in like a clear area, mark a spot on the floor about 10 feet away. So to do the test, you have the person sit in the chair, walk to that spot 10 feet away, turn around and sit down. And then as they do that, you time them. So the time is how we determine if you're at risk for falls. If it takes longer than 12 seconds for someone to do that, they have a high risk of falls. So we need to work on adapting things to help them not fall. One other way you can assess your fall risk pretty easily is a functional reach test. And you can do that by just standing up tall. You put one arm up about 90 degrees, so shoulder height, with your fist closed. And then you lean forward as far as you can without like falling over, of course, without taking a step forward. And you can measure the distance from the end of the fist to how far you reach out. You can get scores from 6 to 11 inches. That's a moderate fall risk. If it's less than 6 inches, it's a high fall risk. So some simple home modifications for fall prevention. The first things to think about are tripping hazards. Loose rugs. People love their rugs, but a lot of people's walkers, or they shuffle their feet, they are tripping on the corners of the rug, or the rug starts to curl up, and that really causes a big tripping hazard. So we want to remove those if we can. If you can't remove them, like you have big furniture sitting on them, there is rug tape, and you can possibly put rug tape on it and tape it down. So does help, but removing is best. Clearing clutter. So we want to make sure wherever the main pathways people are going and walking through, like walking to the bathroom, walking to the bedroom, if they walk to the kitchen, we want to make sure that there is not a lot of things on the floor in their way. Some of the main things that can get in the way easily are like toys for pets, because the pets get them out, they leave them. So we just need to try to make sure those are picked up and not in the way of where people are going. And then the other big one for clutter is electrical cords. People, electrical cords can be run, but we want to run them in places where people are not walking all the time. So you may have to get like an extension cord or something, or like move the plug in so that it's not in a place where you're having to step over it all the time, especially if you have a walker or a cane. It's really easy to catch on those cords. And it's hard to kind of pick up the walker or the cane and get over it. So the other big thing, a lot of people have a favorite sitting area that they like to sit in. They have all their things in this area. They have their water, their medicine, phone. They might have snacks there. So we love that idea. We just make sure that there's not so much things right there in their spot that they can't get to it easily, or they can't get out of it easily. Like if they're having to move a trash can, or they have to go around their table to sit down, we want to make sure that their favorite sitting area works and it's not a hazard to them. So one really key thing to preventing falls is lighting. Lighting is super important, especially when you're talking about older adults. Their vision just reduces as we get older. So we want to make sure people can see where they're going. So lighting, like in the hallways, in the bathroom, if you're, for example, you're watching TV at night, you're in your favorite chair, you have all the lights out because you're going to go to bed after you watch your show. So you get up and walk, but you have no lights on. That's a big fall risk. And that can easily be fixed with proper lighting. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, how to get those. So that's a big point. And then staircases, lighting on staircases. If you're going down the stairs, I don't know if you can see that bottom picture, but sometimes the flooring or the carpet blends and it's hard to see the edge of a stair. So if there is a little bit of contrast on the edge of that step, then that helps people be able to actually know where the end of the step is. And then I mentioned the bathroom. Definitely nightlight in the bathroom. There are actually toilet bowl lights too that you can put in the toilet bowl if that's a problem for people getting up at night and they can't see everything without having to turn all the lights on and wake somebody up. Okay. One of the biggest hurdles to being safe at home and preventing falls is not having any entries that are accessible if you're using any type of device like a walker, cane, wheelchair. A lot of people have steps up to their door, whether it's the front door, garage door. And that does make it hard for people to get into the home and be safe. So having at least one no-step entry to the home allows for someone using any type of device to be able to easily access the home. So if you're thinking about doing any remodeling or anything, to consider that. You can also add grab bars or grab rails to steps on the outside of the home or in the garage. And that definitely provides increased safety for that. In the kitchen, having walkways that are wide enough for somebody that has an assistive device is ideal. I know that there's some houses aren't that big. They only have like a galley kitchen. And that is okay as long as you can have access to the countertop that is stable. So not any islands that move, that roll, nothing like that. But if you have counters with the island, you can use those to stabilize yourself if you don't feel like there's room for like a walker in the kitchen. The other big thing in the kitchen is to use like a stool, a chair. If you have the walker with the seat, you can use that to sit on. Make sure you lock it first. If you're doing long preparation, like meal prep or long activities in the kitchen, that is sitting on a stool or chair is a good way to prevent fatigue. And then you want to make sure people can access items really easily. So I'm pretty short. I'm only 5'2". I don't want to have to reach all the way to the top shelf to get a cup or bowls, plates down. So those can be stored on the counter or on a shelf that's easy to reach. That is going to eliminate falls. Reaching overhead or reaching way down to your feet are two really big fall risk things. So we want to try to eliminate that as much as possible and make things really easy to get to. Even if it's like pots and pans, if you use them a lot, if we can put them in a spot that is easily accessible without having to bend down or reach up, that's the best place to have them. One other thing to consider is also pulled down shelving. They make shelves that actually pull down from out of like a kitchen cabinet, like the picture, or the pull out drawers. So that helps eliminate some of that bending and reaching weight into a cabinet if you can pull it out and have it right there. Okay, so adaptive equipment. This is one big way you can help prevent falls. Adaptive equipment, there's a lot of types of adaptive equipment, and I'm just going to go over some of the most common ones that we see. And if you have a question on what you need, I would definitely recommend getting a home assessment by an occupational therapist or a certified aging in place specialist. So some of the big pieces of adaptive equipment are shower chairs and benches. If you're over the age of 70, you probably is a good idea to sit down and shower. That way you don't slip, or at least have a grab bar in your shower or bathtub. And there's all different types of chairs, benches that you can use. Assistive devices like walkers, rollators, canes, those are huge in preventing falls. They just offer extra balance points for someone that has decreased balance. If you have them, please make sure you're using them. A bed rail or a bed step. A lot of beds are high up and hard to get into. So a bed rail definitely helps someone who's a little bit weaker get their feet up into the bed. It gives them a point of contact when getting out of bed so they don't slip out of the bed. And a bed step can actually just make it something that's a little bit shorter, up a little higher so they can easily get into the bed. Lever handles. There's knob handles that you have to turn on, but lever handles like on sinks are easier to grab, especially if you have arthritis or any dysfunction in your hands. lever handles on doorknobs are actually easier as well to open. So you could consider replacing the knobs to lever handles if that's hard for you. So caregivers' roles in fall prevention. A caregiver is one of the first people that notice changes in their loved one. Caregivers are usually the ones that are talking to them every day, seeing them every day. They are probably the first one that's going to notice any changes in movement, any changes in balance, any increased confusion. And reporting that to healthcare providers is a huge step in preventing a fall. The number one cause of hospitalization besides falls is UTIs and dehydration. And UTIs and dehydration both cause a lot of confusion, a lot of balance problems, and a lot of weakness. So caregivers are usually pretty good at like figuring out they're not really quite right today. It doesn't hurt to call your provider and just see, talk to them, see what's going on. Calling, getting an appointment, it doesn't ever hurt to check that out, especially if it's something that doesn't go away in 24 hours. That can prevent someone from either having a fall or going to the hospital. So another big way, I should say, caregivers can help their loved ones be safe in the home and help prevent falls is encouraging them to use their assistive devices. I don't know how many times I've gone into a home and the person is like, I don't know where my walker is, or I must have left it back in the bedroom. And I'm like, why? Why is this happening? So encourage them to use their assistive device if they have it, especially if they have multiple floors of a home that they're going on. Some people keep walkers on each floor or canes on each floor, which sounds expensive, but there are several loan closets throughout the state, and they usually all have like a walker or cane. So you can get those pretty cheap at loan closets. Wearing proper footwear. This is another big one. Having either rubber-soled shoes or gripper socks to help people not slip and slide on the wood, laminate, tile, floors. That helps provide traction and can help prevent falls. So try to have your loved ones wearing something like that. Slippers with a back and a rubber sole are best. Slippers without backs can kind of slip off or catch things, especially for people that don't pick up their feet well. So if you are going to do slippers, just try to make sure they have a back and a rubber sole on them. And then avoiding rushing. This is a hard one for people to do, but if you can help remind your caregiver to take time when they're getting up and avoid rushing through whatever movements they're doing, like if they're trying to get up and go to the bathroom or whatever it may be, that will help avoid falls. Some ways you can help with the avoiding the rushing is making sure that people have something to drink or eat, especially if they get low blood sugar. Sometimes they get in a panic and they want to rush to get something to eat. So just making sure they always have like a snack or something by them, water by them, and then making sure they don't remember that they're using the bathroom on a regular schedule. That way they're not feeling like they have to run to the bathroom when they need to go. One other big thing caregivers can do to help prevent falls is encouraging your loved one to exercise and work on just walking, balance. Uh, you can use exercises. There's all types of different things you can do. You could probably find some on YouTube or the internet if you search. Uh, but trying to find an activity or an exercise that is meaningful to them, like if they like to golf, you can just pretend like there's a golf club. If they like to fish, you can get like a kid's fishing pool and have them cast the pole and catch different like weighted bags or things like that. So, or you can, if they do like exercising just using weights or like soup cans, there's lots of things in the home that you could use as weights, but they're probably going to need some encouragement. And the caregiver doing it with them is a huge thing that can help them be consistent. Okay, that is the end of my presentation, but I did forget to tell you guys about the lighting. So I'm going to do the lighting real quick. I'm going to go back. I thought I had one more slide on lighting. Uh, the lighting, I know I mentioned it a little bit, but they do make outlet covers with lights on the bottom. So you can put those in hallways that people walk at night or like in the bathroom, night lights in the bathroom or any other areas that they're going to when it is dark. That is extremely helpful. Okay. Questions?
Katie, if anyone's interested in contacting you to ask specific questions, maybe about their specific situation, is that the best email for you?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
You can definitely email. I can give the phone number of our office you can call. If I don't answer, we have another therapist that normally answers, and she could answer any questions.
Right. Does anyone have any questions for Katie?
Yeah, I do. I was kind of curious about, it sounded like a light shining on the toilet or in the toilet. I wasn't sure what I'd actually heard.
So there is a light, it's called a toilet bowl light, and it hooks kind of underneath the seat. So it has like a light on the inside. That way, like especially for men, that helps them be able to see where they're going to the bathroom when they don't have lights on. Kind of gives them a target.
Yeah, I helped to take care of a young man with special needs, and that would probably help him not
Yeah.
turn on all the lights.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's called a toilet bowl light.
Yeah. I know on our site we have them. I would have to research a little bit to find where else you could find it right off the top of my head.
One of the problems I have is that the way the bathroom is set up, the outlet is sort of on the other side of a tiny wall, and the toilet doesn't have any kind of outlet next to it. So then I feel like if I'm plugging something in, then that cord becomes a trip hazard in
Right.
itself. So
Right. So this toilet bowl light would not be, it doesn't plug in. It would be I believe it's light censored, so when it gets dark, it'll shine the light.
thank you.
Mhm.
Katie, we have a couple questions in the chat real quick. The first one is, does Medicaid grant $10,000 in home modification assistance per lifetime if you have a waiver?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think that depends. Um, there is some assistance for Medicaid. Um, there's a lot of steps to get to it, is what I'll say. There has to be a eval by like a occupational therapist, and then there's a whole like quoting process for that. So yes, there is um, money for that. You probably know the amount off more than me. You said 10K. I would have to look up the actual number off the top of my head. And I can get back to you for sure on that.
Kind of related to that, I was trying to do something really simple that wasn't going to cost a lot, and they told me that my son had to be the owner of the house.
Yeah, that too. There is a lot of like I said, there's a lot of steps. You have to be a owner. You have to there's a lot that goes into that. So it looks like I think Evan sent that. I can definitely email you more details on that after I would want to research that a little bit more before I verify all that.
And then we've got a couple more, or we have another question, a couple comments too. So if you can go back to the picture of the light that's coming under the door, it's probably on your light slide. There's a question if that's a strip light or if that's coming from a different place, and if it is a strip light, where can you get those at?
I think, let's see. So that top
Oh,
picture is, go ahead.
I think that's Barbara, is that what you meant? The light coming from behind the outlet?
Yes, I thought that was a doorway. Am I mistaken?
Oh,
I thought that was
yeah, that is, this is an outlet cover.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
My mistake.
but
I thought it was a door.
they do make, you could get lighting strips and put them like on a doorway if you needed to. You would just want to make sure it's not something they're going to trip over. But
Right.
I kind of know what you mean, and that is possible too.
Okay. Yeah, we just for the record, we had some new outlets installed in the bathrooms, and they each now have a little teeny tiny green light on them, so they
Yes.
on all the time, which is kind of interesting. Never seen that before, but it does give that little teeny tiny bit of light. And of course, if you just night light in the bathroom outlet, it might help with just leave it on. It's a habit. If you turn it on at night, then it's lit up enough for the issues you were discussing.
Yes, yes. And then I know the gal that was talking before was worried about plugging in, and somebody mentioned in the chat, there's lots of lights that are battery operated, they can stick on walls. There's lots of lights that are rechargeable that don't use batteries, like night lights or lights that can stick to wherever you need them. So there's a lot of options on that.
And then we've got a couple more comments in the chat. One of them being Ashton recommended contacting your MCO care coordinator if you have a need for home modification, and they should be able to assist. It's regardless of whichever your MCO is.
That is probably the best way to get started for sure.
And then Evan also commented that he had read that fall prevention strategies are not accessible for the Latino Hispanic community, and researchers are beginning to study this. So that's pretty interesting.
That is interesting. I have not heard that, but what I would say is most of the strategies that I talked about should be accessible to the Hispanic community. They're not a lot of things that are like major cost or require a lot of things like the lights, pretty inexpensive to get. There are lots of loan closets for equipment And as far as I know, that hasn't, as far as Latino, Hispanic, I've sent many of those people to a loan closet to get things. So,
Right. Are there any more comments or questions for Katie? Okay. I think we're all set. Katie, thank you so much for your time and for your awesome presentation. And again, would you scroll over to your email slide?
yep.
Um,
Oh,
if
will
anyone
do.
has any questions or personal questions or any other questions for Katie, um, when she gets there, almost.
Going, going. Oh,
There you go.
there.
You can just send her an email, Katie@askcme.com. So thank you very much, Katie. And thank you to everyone who attended. In a couple days, I'll send you a copy of Katie's slides and also a recording of today's presentation. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.